Well, hey everybody, I'm Dr. Mark Hatala, teaching to you today from the conference room, which is across from my lab and next to my office. And what we're going to talk about today are what are called factorial designs. And factorial designs, they could be within, they could be between. We're going to talk about them as between subjects designs today though. What they are essentially is when you have more than one independent variable in your study. And these are vastly preferred over single independent variable designs. And if you think about it for just a second, you'll see why. If you have to think about, let's say, what you're going to do on any particular weekend, it's not usually one variable that determines what it is. It's usually a combination of variables. So things like, hopefully, first is how much homework you have or how much work you need to do, what your friends are doing, what the weather's like, how much money you have, if you have a significant other, what they're up to, whether you're at Truman or if you're at home. And so there's a number of different variables that interact with each other and determine what it is that you're going to do in any particular situation. And it's factorial designs that allow you to study these interactive effects. So let me give you a type of factorial design. This is bystander intervention research. And so what we have is somebody who needs help, and we want to see if somebody intervenes to help them, okay? And so it's a confederate because the person doesn't really need help. And so we're going to use gender. Now, I don't think that gender is binary, but for purposes of this study, we're going to have a man who needs help or a woman who needs help. And then our second independent variable is context, where the person either acts sick or they act drunk. Okay? And so this is what we would call a 2x2 design. So this is a 2x2 factorial, where the first independent variable is gender and the second is context. Now, we can label each one of these treatment cells in terms of rows and columns. Okay, so by row and column. So this is row 1, row 2, column 1, column 2. So this would be row 1, column 1, row 1, column 2, row 2, column 1, and row 2, column 2. So we can label, because each one of these represents a unique treatment, where these people are exposed to a male who acts sick, a male who acts drunk, a female who acts sick, and a female who acts drunk. What they found is that the people who are most likely to be helped are women who appear to be sick. And the people who are least helped are men who appear to be drunk. The reasoning is this, is that the person who's drunk brought that on themselves, and so they're responsible at some level. I think I'd be more likely to help a drunk person. I can't catch their drunkenness. I could theoretically catch their sickness. But there's also, women are helped more than men. There's something what's called a lady in distress paradigm, where people are more likely to help women than they are to help men. But we can take this study and we can break it down into two types of results. And so we have what are called main effects and interactions. The main effect is the impact of a single independent variable in a factorial design. And you have as many main effects as you have independent variables. So for this particular study, we have a main effect for gender, okay? And what we do is essentially we collapse across the other variable. And so we have male and female. So we collapse across sick or drunk, and we just want to know who's helped more often, men or women. And so women are helped more, men are helped less. Okay, so that's the gender main effect. There's also a main effect for context. We would say there's two different contexts. People act sick or drunk. And so people who are appear sick are helped more, and people who are drunk appear drunk are helped less. And so we have as many, and I'll say it again, we have as many main effects as we have independent variables. So there's one for gender and one for context. You put these two together, and then you can see why we have this interaction for gender and context, where sick women are helped the most, which follows logically, and drunk men are helped the least, which also follows logically. Now, variables are said, I'll talk about interactions here too. So variables are said to interact when the presence or absence of one impacts the second variable, okay? So the example I always give with this when I teach freshman week is I always make sure I point out, I'm just gonna erase this stuff for now, that when you're cleaning, okay, you can use bleach or ammonia. Okay, and so bleach is either present or absent. Ammonia is either present or absent. But the problem is that bleach and ammonia interact with each other. And so if you mix bleach with ammonia, you die because it creates a poison gas. And a lot of times when people are cleaning, they have their face right down where they're cleaning, and it's in a small enclosed space, and so they pass out and they can die from that, and people do. If ammonia is present and bleach is absent, you get a clean bathroom. If bleach is present and ammonia is absent, you get a clean bathroom. If both are absent, then I don't know, you probably have some cleanliness issues and should try to clean things up a little bit. Many researchers believe that interactions are so important that that's all we should really study. Because again, that is the way we live our lives. We live our lives in terms of interactions. For example, there's a type of interaction could be the effectiveness of a persuasive message. It's not like there's one factor that determines whether someone's persuasive or not. So for example, if I had someone come in and try to talk to you about surfing, why you should take up surfing, really why shouldn't you take up surfing, what would be the factors that would be important in determining whether they convinced you or not? I don't think gender would make any difference because men surf, women surf, everybody surfs. The age of the person could have an impact though. We would expect them to be maybe younger and more athletic than like somebody my age. The way they're attired, I can't spell attired, so I'm going to say dressed, would be a factor too. If they were dressed like me, you'd say this guy doesn't know anything about surfing, but if they were in like board shorts and a t-shirt that said, I don't know, some company that makes boarding equipment, you would be like, oh, that seems appropriate. Also, what's their experience? Are they like a professional surfer? Have they won something? That affects their credibility a lot. Or are they just like, I read about surfing and I think you should try it too. I think another thing here is their accent. I'm convinced that people with British accents to Americans are just more convincing. I think in particular, if they were talking about surfing, then if they had an Australian accent, then that would be very convincing. Or if they were American and they had a California type accent, I think, because accents say really a lot about you. It tells you where you're from, and that lends to credibility too. So if you have like an accent that sounds like you're from the Bayou or from the Bronx, people aren't going to believe that you're like an experienced surfer as much as if you're like have an Australian accent or a Californian accent too. Let me give you another example too of an interaction. This is the famous marshmallow test. It doesn't have to be marshmallows though, but that's what's been used in the past. And this study's come under some controversy, but you can read about it if you're really interested in it. What they do is, sometimes it's done with different types of candies too, like gummy bears, sometimes marshmallows, I can't remember, Tootsie Rolls. They do it with Tootsie Rolls too. What they do is they tell the child, they put them into, here's the condition, okay? So they have a toy, and they have, let's say, gummy bears. These are gummies. So the toy is either present or absent, and the gummy is either present or absent. Now, this isn't a great toy. It's like a toy, like a Happy Meal toy, which is a crappy toy, but to a kid, that's a great toy. And so they do this with like 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds and 5-year-olds. And here's what they tell them. They say, you can have the gummy bear now, but if you wait, you can have the toy. Okay, so you can have the gummy bears now, if you like, but if you wait, you can have the toy. And if you watch YouTube videos of these studies, they say you can have the gummy bears now, and the kid starts shoving them into his mouth. They don't even wait for the second part of it a lot of times. What they find, and what they're interested in, is are they willing to wait to get the toy? Okay, and that's why I encourage you to watch videos on it, because the kids come up with all these strategies so that they don't eat the gummy so they can get the toy. What they find is that the kids who wait the longest have the toy present so they can see what they're working for. And the gummy bears are absent, so there's no temptation. The kids who wait the least amount of time is where the gummy bears are present so they can see what they're going to get and the toy is absent. And so they're like, well, better to get the gummy now and maybe we have to worry about the toy. This study has shown to be predictive of which children go to college and which don't. And that's one of the reasons why it's controversial too. Because you're really not, what are you really measuring in this study? You're not measuring, whether they're like gummy bears or crappy toys. You're measuring delayed gratification. Are you willing to put off happiness today for some brighter future? And this is what going to college really you're doing, because if you think about it, you could get a job with a high school diploma, and many of your friends maybe from high school have, and you could start your life making decent money, but the idea is by going to college you're going to make more money long term, and theoretically not have your name on your shirt and have to wash your hands at the end of the day. But so you're holding out for a better job later, but you're able to delay gratification. Okay, I want to finish this out with talking about graphing your results, and then it's just because it's a quick and easy way to see if there's an interaction or not. Okay, so let's go back to our study with the bystander intervention, and so we'll represent it like this. Here's the probability of helping. So that's going to be high or low. And then down here, we're going to put the context, sick or drunk. Okay? And then we're just going to arbitrarily make women like circles here. So that's women. And then men are going to be squares. Okay? So what does it look like if we have no main effects and no interactions? Well, in that case, what we would find is that women are helped equally often when they're sick as when they're drunk, and men are helped equally when they're sick or when they're drunk, and about as equally as women are. Okay? What if we have a main effect for gender. Okay, so main effect for gender, but no interaction. Well, then it looks something like this, that women are helped equally when they're sick as when they're drunk, because context doesn't make any difference, but they're helped more often than men are because there's a main effect for gender. What if there is a main effect for context, but not for gender, and no interaction? Then women who are sick are helped more than women who are drunk, and men who are sick are helped more than women, than men who are drunk. Men who are sick are helped more than men who are drunk. And so it looks something like this. What if you have both main effects significant? So gender and context are significant, and there's no interaction. In this case, women are helped more than when they're sick than when they're drunk, and men are helped more when they're sick than when they're drunk, but they're always helped less than women because we have a main effect for gender also. Now, there's been no interaction this whole time, and the way that you can identify whether there's an interaction or not is these have always been parallel lines. So parallel lines means no interaction. Okay, non-parallel lines means that there's a significant interaction. And so what would an interaction look like? Well, it could be where men and women are helped equally when they're sick, and then women are helped far more when they're drunk, and men aren't helped at all when they're drunk. And I think that's a likely outcome that you might find, but that would be a significant interaction. You could also find the opposite of that. But you could also find what's called a crossover interaction, where women are helped all the time when they're sick, but not when they're drunk. Men are helped all the time when they're sick, but not when they're drunk. But you can see in both cases, we end up with non-parallel lines, which means that we have a significant interaction present. That's what I want to talk about for this lesson. I hope you're having a great day wherever you are, and I'll talk to you again soon.